So prior to being committed to this, it would ruin my day, my week, if somebody asked, "Oh, are you finished yet?" And I'm like, "Not yet."
You have found Authentic Business Adventures, the business program that brings you the struggle stories and triumphant successes of business owners across the land. Downloadable audio episodes can be found in the podcast link found at drawincustomers.com. We are locally underwritten by the Bank of Sun Prairie and Calls on Call Extraordinary Answering Service, as well as the Bold Business Book. And today we're welcoming / preparing to learn from Valerie. Oh my goodness, Valerie McGehee. Did I say the name right, Valerie?
Right, Valerie McGehee.
All right. Author of Atomic Grit, which that's got to be one of the coolest names of a book that I've ever heard. So, Valerie, how is it going today?
It's great. It's a beautiful day in Atlanta, and
Yeah.
I'm loving being an executive and now a new author. So it's
Nice.
can't complain.
So let's start with the Atomic Grit book.
Yeah.
What triggered you? What was the big inspiring moment or two that caused you to write that book?
So it began with my doctoral dissertation, which I did on grit, goal setting, and social support. And I had always been an overachiever my entire life. And I got to a point where I was stuck and I could not finish writing my dissertation.
Oh,
And I was like, what the heck? I've accomplished so many things and did most of them by myself. So it was fun, but it was also a lonely journey of accomplishments. And I was embarrassed to admit to anybody that I couldn't get through my doctorate. And it wasn't until I discovered social support also accepting social support, which is basically in this situation, is someone saying that they're your accountability partner, like, hey, checking in on you, like, how far did you get with your rating today, or did you finish yet? And so I came across my accountability partner, and he checked in on me. He helped to edit my work, and it was at that point where I was able to finish my dissertation. But let me just rewind. When I was trying to figure out what my topic should be, I started to interview other people who had graduated from my program, other doctorates. And I was like, what did you do to finish? And the theme in common with all of them was that they had this grit, this resilience that was just innate. They were just, overachievers. And they set goals to finish their writing. And that's because, I went through the program fairly fast. I passed all my exams the first try. So I'm like, I could do this. But when you're on your own and you have nobody telling you you have to write, you have to submit this, and no, you're basically doing this independently. They told me that they set goals. And so after doing all this research, I went to my advisor and I said, I think I want to do my research on grit, goal setting, and social support, because I've done so much research already on figuring out how I should finish this, that I want to do it based on how to finish a doctoral program. And so after cleaning it up, he approved it. And he had basically at that point also said, well, if you don't get it done soon, like, you're just going to have to maybe accept a master's instead of a doctorate. And I'm like, no. We're not doing that. So I actually enjoy doing my research. And I found that no matter your income level, your where you were raised, if you were in a divorced household or your parents were married, it didn't matter. If you had grit, if you could set goals, and you had some sort of social support, which was the missing piece, which is accepting help from others, accepting mentoring for getting help with accountability, you would be successful. And so Stephen Covey, he wrote The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and he created basically with his research, he put together the maturity continuum. And it's on the bottom level is dependence, on the middle level is independence, and the top of the maturity continuum is interdependence. And that means you are able to be interdependent, but you're also capable of working with others. And that's the ultimate level of maturity, knowing that you could do it yourself, but you're more successful when you're working together. And this could be in any situation, a couple or roommates living together, both buying food or paying the rent together. It's more successful that way. In my situation, I accepted help. I had to throw out the window that I'm independent, I could do this myself. I was more successful when I accepted the help of somebody checking in on me and admitting that I couldn't get this done on my own, because life got in the way and I got distracted. I did everything else but making this my priority. So I had already done the research of grit, goal setting, and social support, which is the premise of the book. But when I became a professor at the University of Louisiana, I was always giving my students advice on career help and helping to make good choices after college. And so a few times I would hear, you have to write this down, where, did you write a book on this yet? And so a few years had passed, and this past summer, I was like, I just need to get this out of my head. I have the research. I just need to put my stories with the research, my personal stories. And I get to write a fun book instead of collegiate research that goes into a journal that other professors read. I want this to be like a fun book. And so that's how it came to be.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I wrote a book, and it's interesting how you get the stuff in your head and you just get in that zone.
Yep.
And you type, and then it takes a little while, because you're not just knocking it out in one sitting.
No.
You got to come back, and then you think like, oh my gosh, I got to put that little thing in the book, and I got to put that little thing in the book.
I'd be driving, I would be in the shower, I'd be falling asleep, and I'm like, oh my God, I have to add that story. That's like, and actually I remember one night I couldn't sleep. I was thinking about my book, and I was like, I just feel like something's missing. And I'm like, oh my God, I need to talk about how this all started with my goal setting. And I added it to the end of the book as the epilogue. And I tell a story about my fourth grade teacher, and I don't mention her name. And I actually give her credit and thank her for doing what she did. But I was new to a school. My parents had divorced and remarried, and I was living with my mom and her new husband, and I was the newbie. And I walk into the classroom, and the teacher, I just felt like she didn't like me from the very beginning. She put me in the back of the room next to the windows, and I had a lot going on in my life. I was my mom was married to somebody new, and I didn't see my dad, and so I was like daydreaming, not paying attention much. And I remember doing some math work and then not really knowing what I was doing. I get back the paper, and she made it a point for herself to bring it to my desk. Very dramatic, smack it down with big X in red, of course, across the whole paper with an F circled on top. We've all seen that before. And she looks down at me, and I look up at her with shame, just filled with shame. And she says, if you can't get this math, you're never going to make it to college. And I was like, oh my God, I hope this isn't true. And I was so scared. I was like, if I can't figure this out, I'll never make it to college. And later that day, I went home, and Oprah was on at the time, and she had an episode about like writing your goals down and write the dates when you want to achieve them, and you'll more likely achieve the goals if you have dates. And so I started to do, I would write pages and pages of goals, even up until like I was an adult, and I was only in fourth grade, so 10 years old. But
wow.
I mean, just pages of what I wanted out of life. And I just became a serial goal setter, and I would just get things done because I wanted to prove her wrong. But the irony was that kind of like forgot about her and it was just Nate at that point. I got an invitation in high school to attend the college scholarship award ceremony. And I was like, oh, this is exciting. I remember my guidance counselor had me apply to the Hungarian Rotary Club because my grandmother was from Hungary and I was Hungarian. And so I was like, oh, I guess I'm getting that scholarship. It was like $1,200. And so my mom was there in the audience, separated, the parents and the students were sitting separate. And they called my name for this. I got that scholarship and I was like, oh, okay, that's exciting. Then at the end, every elementary school that filtered into the high school was giving a student who's graduating a scholarship. And so my school gets called up. The person presenting that scholarship is my fourth grade teacher. And I'm like, oh gosh, her. And she calls my name and I get the college scholarship. So I'm like, wow, this is so ironic.
Wow.
And I don't remember this part, but my mom does, that I walked all the way around past her, past my teacher, my former teacher, went to the audience and high-fived my mom, and then went up and got my, my like, scholarship. And it was just one of those moments where I was like, I felt like I proved myself. But I didn't stop there. I ended up finishing college early, getting my master's, becoming a part-time professor at age 23, and then going on to complete my doctorate. But after college, I was an elementary teacher for 10 years, and
Oh,
I
wow.
taught fourth grade, and I made sure that every kid knew how to do their math. Yeah.
So all from that one moment with that fourth grade teacher,
Yeah, yeah. And
this whole thing stemmed.
if it wasn't for her, I may not have done all of this, but she triggered something in me. And it's basically the title of my book, Atomic Grit, which is the difference between grit and atomic grit. Is atomic grit is in every capacity of your life. You go above and beyond. You can visualize you're achieving your goals as if it's already happened. You write down your goals as if they already happened. You write when you want to finish them. But in everything you do, it's just all encompassing. It's who you are.
Nice. I like it. I like it. Tell me, why did you end up getting out of elementary school teaching?
So when I was going for my doctorate, I needed to take one elective. And so I took a business course. And I was like, oh my gosh, I really love business. And so I ended up finishing a graduate certificate in entrepreneurship while I was taking my doctoral courses. And I was, as a hobby, I used to make swimsuits. I used to take my swimsuits and cut them up and embellish them and sew them and make new ones. And my friends would give me theirs and I would do the same thing. And so I started a swimsuit company.
Oh, real? Wow.
And
That's awesome.
living in New Jersey, I had access to New York City. And my friend, who was a photographer, had posted some pictures of my swimsuits on his website. An event coordinator for one of the big nightclubs called the Hudson Terrace reached out to him. It was like, who's that swimwear designer? And he gave him my number. I ended up they were using my swimsuits for a modeling agency that had to do a fashion show that weekend. Their swimsuit designer bailed and they used mine. And between social media and different people being there, it just blew up. And it was an accident. And I was an elementary teacher still. And on the weekends, I was going to these fashion shows and doing all these events. And then I got a call from the Oscars to do their gifting suite. And then I got a call from the Grammys to do their gifting suite. So I was going back and forth to Beverly Hills and living a double life. And I remember I was ready to resign from teaching. And I got called into the principal's office because I had to leave on a Friday and I missed a professional development day. And she was like, this is just unacceptable. She's like, where were you? What was your excuse? And I said, I was at the Emmys. And she was like, oh, okay. Just didn't expect to hear that because I kept it as private as I could. And then I said, and I'm also resigning. But I had done my 10 years. And I just knew that if I wasn't going to go into business, I wanted to be more than a classroom teacher, and I was going to go to be like a principal or a superintendent. I just knew that teaching was a great job and it was fun, and I really enjoyed it. But I just knew that there was like much more for me. And so I did the swimsuit company for about 4 years. And then somebody offered to partner with me, didn't want to do that. And I ended up selling my stock to this person. And then I got a job doing educational sales. And
Oh,
so that started, the business. I felt like having 10 years of experience in education and then getting into the business world of sales with a company that was not mine and it was actually Franklin Covey. It was, it's a very reputable company. And
hmm.
I love the 7 Habits and such amazing principles. And it was a great fit. So that's how I got into business. That's a long story after education. But then after I moved out of New Jersey, I married my husband. He's from Louisiana, and there happened to be an opening at University of Louisiana for a sales and marketing professor. And I was like,
Oh.
me, that's me. So that was probably my most fulfilling job, that I made the biggest difference in people's lives, where I helped them get jobs and start their careers. So I was a very hands-on professor. I was very connected to the business community, and I was also a sales coach. We had a sales team. So these students would compete against other sales students, other universities in like sales role play and speed selling. I mean, the bravery it takes for these sales students to do this at that age is incredible. And so I coached them, and the sales team, definitely those were students that I became very close to. Like, I would help them with their resumes, I would do role play with their interviews, and I'm still connected to a lot of them today. And many of them showed up for my book signing in Lafayette in March, which was so sweet.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah,
That is cool.
yeah.
So tell me, as far as the difference between putting the book together,
Hmm.
just kind of for yourself and your family and friends and stuff like that, and actually going full tilt publishing, throwing it out to the world.
Hmm.
Was that challenging, or was there ever a thought like, I don't know if I want to put this out to the world or just give it to my little circle, or was it just like the world needs to hear this and we're gonna blast it off here?
Yeah, more of the latter. I felt
Okay.
like because I mean, till this day, I mean, 2 days ago, one of my students, one of my former students was texting me on advice for a career. This is like her second job, her second career, and I'm still giving advice. And so I feel like it's it's so important for younger people. I mean, the book is for anybody in any stage of your life, but especially for younger people who may not have the guidance to really start their careers. And even though the book could be for men or women, I gear some areas especially towards women.
Okay.
As a female currently in a senior leadership position at my company now, um, there's still a glass ceiling. There's still differences. It's not as bad as it was, in the past, for sure. But and I'm treated so fairly here. And I mean, I could go on about how awesome my coworkers are. It's definitely a unique company. We're like a family. But as a young woman starting off, there's things that you need to do. I mean, even though I was recruited here, I still had to go through the interview process and, interview with the owner. And I was prepped how the second co-founder, about his personality and how he interviewed people. And I was coached by the other co-founder on how to handle him. And I said things in this interview that I would never say to a super successful, multimillionaire, billionaire owner. And because of having been coached was how I secured this job. And
Okay.
so it's like for a woman to speak up and to stand her ground against like powerful men in the industry, it's not easy to do. And so that's what I talk about in the book, is about, having this like relentless determination of like knowing your worth, working hard, work hard, play hard. There's this thing now about like work-life balance. And
Oh, I hate that phrase.
it's like, I want to say, like, who told you this?
Right.
Who told you this? And so I mentioned in my book, like, I put in like 10 years of being in one job and committing to that job and learning education, which made me so much more prepared to to do educational sales, because I wasn't selling as somebody who didn't have experience. I had a decade, I had my 10,000 hours plus of experience that I could speak as an expert to these educational professionals, these superintendents, these board members. And so I put in time. And there's a point where it could be unhealthy if you are a slave to your job and you're just cutting people off. And so I want to be clear on that. And there's different people in different careers who are in more need of a work-life balance. There's nurses who have not been home for holidays because they have to be working. So it depends on your industry.
Mhm.
But as you're beginning your career, you need to work your butt off to get the experience, prove yourself, stick to a job. And that's another thing I talk about, is to be resilient and stick to one job, not for like a year or 2 years, even though it's becoming very common to see, because I do interviews all the time. It's very common to see job hoppers, especially with younger people.
Oh, yeah.
1 year, 2 year. So it's becoming
6 months.
it's becoming more acceptable, but it's still hard to understand, like, because you're like, I'm going to invest in this person and then they're going to be out because they want to work from home more. And so there just has to be some kind of commitment. If you're in a toxic work environment and you have to get out, that's completely different. But if it's not so bad, if it's not toxic, I talk about some red flags in my book about what toxic environment looks like. But you need to grind and you need to work your butt off for a good amount of your 20s. I would say all of your 20s and the beginning of your 30s to like really grind and work hard. And then the work-life balance comes. So, I mean, even now my work-life balance is not balanced, but my husband has a flexible job. So he does real estate and then he's a professional piano player. So a lot of his stuff is at night. And so he has a flexibility, but he's doing his part and helping out at the house, and I'm doing my part. So I travel a lot, and I'm at the office every single day.
It seems to me that there are a lot of people, I'm going to dare say younger people, but I don't know if it's universally that feel like they're owed something.
Mm-hmm.
And they haven't yet learned that they have to earn something.
Right.
So my rule was always, you do what others won't do so that you can do what others can't do.
Yes.
And they feel like they want to skip that first step, and they just like, I want to travel, I want to see the world, I want to do all the things, I want to own all the things.
Yeah.
But they forget that that's not just given to you. You have to earn that. You have to find a way through the little maze, right?
Yes.
To earn that. However you do it, right? There's a million different ways. Businesses you can start, jobs you can work, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's unlikely that someone's just going to knock on your door someday and be like, here's the keys to your yacht.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's this mentality that's just like, oh, I don't want to work. I don't want to earn it. I don't want to have it 10 years from now. I want to have it today.
Right.
And like, that's not necessarily how the world works.
That like scares me. That like, I can't think that way. even imagine being so laxed that it's just going to happen down the road. I think this is probably because my last full-time job, I was still teaching an MBA class.
Mhm.
So this is like my first time in my life where I have one job, and I've always worked 3 to 5 jobs.
Oh, at the same time, just
At the
juggling.
same time,
All
yes.
right.
So whether it was like teaching college courses part-time, maybe at 2 or 3 different universities, my full-time job. I remember when my husband and I first got married, I would wake up at 4 in the morning, log on and teach students in China English for 2 to 3 hours. And then I would go teach an 8 a.m. class at the local university as my part-time job. And then whatever university, because I was teaching at 3 different universities part-time, and whichever university I was teaching at, that would be my territory where I would go and make my visits for my full-time job. And
Wow.
so, you have 24 hours in a day, and I say, Beyonce and Taylor Swift also have 24 hours in a day, and see
Yeah.
what they can do. So
Yep. That's fair.
it's time management and get it all in.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is an understanding of the opportunity that we have.
Mhm.
Ever like the Beyonce's and the Taylor Swift's, whoever you want to insert that you
Right,
look
exactly.
up to, right?
Yep.
Or that you look down to, or you're just like, you haven't really done a whole lot with those
Yeah.
24
Very
hours.
successful people. Yeah, let's Elon Musk.
Yeah, whoever. There's tons of people and they all get the same time. And
Hmm.
it's interesting because we don't know necessarily when it's going to be up or done.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we can get hit by a
Yeah.
bus anytime, or
Right.
whether you're out of time or just incapacitated at a hospital or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I
And
feel like there's,
really, it's just
yeah.
all it takes is like, here's the average person. And if you just do a little bit more than everyone else,
Mm-hmm.
you'll end up, if we're doing a chart, you'll just be doing a little bit more than everybody else and you'll get ahead.
Oh, exponential. Yeah.
Yeah. And it doesn't take that much effort, but it takes effort, and it takes to do a little bit more, a little bit more.
Tell me, in your book, in the research that you've done for it and the people that you've taught and come across and have read your book, how many times do you come across people where, I guess this is a challenge that I see often, more often than I'd like, is I have all this information or all this stuff, and there's websites, there's YouTube videos, there's tons of information about how to accomplish your goals and stuff
Mhm.
like this. But I find people either don't have goals or they're kind of lacking desire. They're barely looking an hour ahead into the future.
Yeah.
Barely, right? It's just I
Well,
just want to keep scrolling on social media.
yeah. Well, I would say that's the difference between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. So with a growth mindset is you learn from your mistakes, where you learn, you hear different ways to get to do things, and it's a learning curve, and you want to make the change and you do it different next time. The fixed mindset is that didn't work out, so I'm not going to try, or I'm not going to do something new to try to get there. So and a growth mindset is teachable and changeable. You can increase your growth mindset, and it's just being open-minded to get to that point, because that's where your grit comes in. It's how much passion and perseverance do you have? Like, how bad do you want it? Can you envision yourself at that point? And it's going back, it's taking little steps to get there. If you're not a super motivated person, it's if you, well, here's an example. My husband, we're kind of new to Atlanta. We've been here for a year, and he needs to get more exposed for piano, because that's kind of like a, who type of thing.
I bet. Yeah.
And yeah, and so he had a great start, but he wanted more, and he knew that he had time to open up his schedule. And so it just took one phone call, and then he got a reference from somebody else. And so he would just, every day, he would just make a few phone calls a day, and those phone calls have now turned into, basically, is supporting his lifestyle. And so
Nice.
it's just, you don't have to, if you're not the person who you want to like go all out and go to the extreme, a little at a time. That's all it takes. But
Nice.
doing it, you have to do it. Showing up is
Fair.
the
Totally
hardest
fair.
thing, right? Showing up is the hardest part.
Yeah. So what has been the reception that you've gotten from the book from the people that you know have read it, I should say, is probably a little
Yeah, yeah,
caveat
yeah.
there.
Well, I guess I don't know if it's because they're family and friends, but everyone has uh, told me it's been a great read. Um, and again, even though some of it is geared towards women, I've had my male former college students read it and give me the same feedback. Um, one of the girls I know who's graduating undergrad now, she's like, "This is what we need to learn in schools." And I said, "Well, if you were there when I was there, this is what I was teaching to students." And
Nice.
um, so, it's something that there's some basic life skills that just aren't taught in school. And I always went out of my way to do that as a professor, teach the curriculum, but also let's have conversations about XYZ.
Mm-hmm.
So,
But you mentioned, I want to say the word leadership came up when I was researching your book quite a bit.
mhm.
So can you tell me about that and what you've seen as far as that goes with either your students or just people in general, as far as either wanting to be leaders or maybe even wanting to be followers, I
Yeah.
guess.
Well, it's not easy to be a leader or a manager. And that's another thing. People think that they want to be, a C-suite or some kind of like sales manager. And it's not that easy. And sometimes it's not that fun, especially in sales. If you're really good in sales, sometimes you're better in sales and you're a terrible manager when you're given that opportunity. And sometimes salespeople are better managers than they are in sales. So it's also sometimes it's not that fun managing people because you're having to deal
Often, yeah.
with like drama and some nonsense and like having to like it takes away from your job. So it's not all that it's uh, cracked up to be, I would say. But for me, my current position as a female leader in my company, um, it's it's been great to be able to make a difference. So I'm over the renters division, which is a new product for us. So we've been selling auto insurance for 25 years. So they brought me in to build this product. So for me, it's been so much fun of seeing what I can do with this product and trying to hit our goals, expanding into, well, we're eventually going to be in all 50 states, but as the owner and leader of this product, that's completely different than like managing a bunch of people. And like this has been like a journey. This has been fun to like learn different things. And also I never did renters insurance before. I was working at a commercial insurance company
Hmm.
where that's like people who have tons of money and are just insuring their assets because they want to. Here, with auto and renters insurance, people have to either legally or for their auto or
Practically,
required
yeah.
to their apartment. Yeah. So it's very different. And so that's been fun as a leader in this role, which is creating this business. And it's very entrepreneurial. It's very, very entrepreneurial.
That's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
How, so tell me when you ended up in this position, I imagine how big is this company that you're working for now?
So we are about a $400 million company.
Okay, so that's healthy size.
Mhm.
So I imagine, and this is me not coming from a $400 million company.
Mhm.
I imagine when you're working with or for a smaller company, you're more nimble and
Yes.
able to adapt. Where when you have a bigger company like that, that adds layers of
Right.
management and software systems and all that jazz, just
Mhm.
layers. Support that maybe a smaller company, it's an afterthought if it exists at all.
Mhm.
Has that been a challenge knowing that you have this grow or die mentality and the atomic grit, but
Yeah,
sometimes you run into this business is like trying to turn the Titanic.
that's so funny that you say that. So at the prior company I was at, it was an international company. I was not working at headquarters, but I was the VP of sales. And it was a well-oiled ship. And there was a like there were many departments, and it was just running itself. Here, it's a much smaller company, and the CIO is down the hall from me. The CEO is directly next door to me. Our chief legal counsel is on the other side of me. And so I'm in the mix where if I need to get an answer or approval to do something, it's right here. So I'm able to literally get up, walk over, and get approval. At a bigger company, it was much harder. You don't see those people. Here, I'm seeing them every single day. We're going out for drinks after work. It's, you get to know these people. So the although being in a leadership position, you're also in charge of expense reports and P&L. And in our situation, all the senior leaders here are getting phone calls from the owner of the company, maybe on a Saturday or Sunday morning at 6 a.m. and you have to pick up that call.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and you have to know your numbers. And if you don't know your numbers, you're going to get tripped up and you feel really bad about yourself. And so you just have to be, as a senior leader, you have to be on top of your game all the time. You have to know every part of your business in and out. And it's also a game of communication. You have to be able to communicate to agents, to associates, and there's a completely different type of communication to the senior leadership and those in the C-suites. It's
You
a
say,
lot of
I want to interrupt you there for a second. A different type of communication. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah. So with the C-suites, they want to know data and numbers. And so it's very quantitative. And when you're speaking with agencies and associates, it's more qualitative conversations. So you have to be able to flip-flop both around and know the lingo.
It's so interesting that you mentioned that, because I was just chatting with another business owner yesterday for lunch. And we're chatting about remote employees. All my employees are remote.
Mhm.
And so I look at data, and
Yep.
data, it's all numbers, right?
Yes.
It's all numbers and graphs and all this
Yep.
kind of stuff. But the people
Yep.
behind them are human.
Yes.
And one of the challenges that I have is I had this employee come to me and she's like, I feel like you're treating us like numbers. And I was like, well, to a point, that's all I have to go on.
Yeah.
Because we're not in the same office, right? We
Yeah.
can't go out for drinks because we're thousands of miles apart from each other,
Mhm.
at least hundreds.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those, like, all I have to go by is data and essentially what you tell me.
Right.
So if you're not telling me what you think I should know, I don't know.
Yeah.
And it was a weird conversation because I was trying to figure out, well, how can I either treat them or even talk with them more like they're human
Right.
when a lot of the times they're trying to avoid even talking with the boss kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, something that really impresses me about my colleagues on the senior leadership team is they are all extremely data driven, but they are so great at telling stories and explaining concepts. And we do work with Franklin Covey on their corporate level, but we have brought in some presentation coaches to help us out. But I just feel like most of these guys, because they're all guys, are just naturals. And I mean, from product development, who like sets the insurance rates, to our CEO, who's like numbers, 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 they all have the skill of being amazing storytellers. And
Nice.
I feel like that is because, between the different departments and claims and stuff, we all don't know those departments as much as they do. So even though we can understand data, they still have to interpret the data for us, during our weekly executive meetings and share the stories and tell the stories. And then it makes a lot more sense. We ask questions, there's a dialogue, and now we all understand the business, what's going on.
Got it.
Yeah.
I want to downshift a little bit and back up to something you said way in the beginning of this conversation that I wanted to dive into. It was the people that you chatted with for accountability.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you figure out who to choose? How did you reach out to them? How often did you chat with them? And was it a two-way accountability, or was it just someone essentially checking to make sure that you did your stuff to keep up with your goals?
Are you talking about for my dissertation?
Yeah, you mentioned there was a guy, something like that,
Yeah.
that
Yeah. So ended up being my
you, I
husband.
guess.
So my husband ended up being my accountability partner.
Oh,
But
wow, okay.
so and by the way, I met my husband on Bourbon Street.
Oh, nice. All right.
That's a fun story. Um, he's a he was a professional piano player, and I was there to volunteer for Habitat for Humanity.
Oh, well,
So
there you go. Match
so,
made in heaven here.
yeah, exactly. So my accountability partner for my dissertation was my husband, and so he helped check in on the progress that way. But when I was doing these interviews, prior to getting my topic approved, and I was interviewing other doctoral graduates, some of them became my accountability partners. Some of my former classmates became my accountability partners. Some who had finished, who I was taking classes with and had already finished, would cheer me on. And so it got to a point where I would completely humiliate myself if I didn't finish. So I had to, because so many people knew about it.
Because when they would ask you about it, you didn't want to be like, yeah, no, didn't do that thing.
Right. So prior to being committed to this, it would ruin my day, my week, if somebody asked, "Oh, are you finished yet?" And I'm like, "Not yet. Working on it."
Yeah, locusts. Terrible
Yeah.
food, right?
Yeah. And there actually, to be honest, there were some things that did prevent me from finishing. I remember that was when we were using flash drives. Like, I lost my flash drive and I didn't have it backed up. I'm like, oh, I guess I gotta start over. I didn't have the best faculty support. My professor was working at a university in China, and so when I would submit, he was a visiting professor over there, and so happened to happen during my dissertation. So by the time he did get back to me, it was like the end of the semester, and it was like one response, and I was like, like I have to fix a whole chapter now. Like a whole semester went by. But it was actually at one of the universities where I was teaching at part-time. It was the chairperson of the department who really guided me and helped me and motivated me, and was an accountability partner, and would give me some books to use for part of my research and would give me some feedback. He ended up being on my dissertation council, and so he was very involved in helping me finish it. And
Nice.
interesting was that the day that so my husband, as a professional performer, he coached me for my actual dissertation defense. And so I had prepared for it. I mean, it was memorized. This was like a 2-hour defense. Basically, the whole thing was memorized with slides. And I mean, my husband helped me do like I would like put a pencil in my mouth and do the like all those like vocal practices. And so I was so prepared for this defense, but I was already living in Louisiana, so I had to fly back up by myself. And I mean, this was it. This was like the day that I have been working so hard for forever. And I remember walking into this room, and I just started with my presentation. And at the end, I had some questions. They told me to step out, as I know they always do, for them to convene. And they brought me back in, and I'm standing in front of these academic giants who are determining my fate. And the head of my defense says, "Congratulations, Dr. McGehee." And
Oh, nice.
my world just stopped. And it was like in slow motion. I was hearing Dr. McGehee, like, like it's happening. And I guess this is a segue to a future book that I want to write, but I call it my halo of success moment, where it's something that you wanted so bad that it's an internal happiness where you could have, like, your college graduation or a birthday party and you have a bunch of people there and everyone's like, hey, happy birthday and happy for you. But there are moments in your life where maybe it's like a job that you really wanted, where maybe you nailed an interview and you just feel like this glee, this happiness where you can just like flow. And I like to use the example of, at the end of a movie where you see the guy like jumping and clicking his heels in the air and he's just like so happy, like that feeling of just this ultimate level of success. Sometimes it lasts for a few minutes, sometimes it lasts for a few days. I'm sure actors and actresses feel that way when they get like a really big part or when they get like paid really well, like you're just so happy. So I packed my stuff up, had to head back to the airport. I told the person in the coffee shop that I just defended my doctorate and I'm a doctor now, and the person sitting next to me, I just wanted to talk to everybody. And this halo of success is like, it just makes you so happy. You're just so sociable and you just want to be so friendly and nice to everybody. So it's like, how do you get that more often? Like, how can you? And so that's why I want to do some more research on and maybe do some interviews on people who experience that, maybe experience it more often. But man, that was an incredible feeling.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because I think of this. I'm not a doctor, but there was a car that I was working on. I was mechanic way back when. I put different engine in there, different manual transmission. I put all kinds of blood, sweat, and tears on this. I think there's more knuckle skin in that car than there is on my hands. Anyways, I remember going on this on-ramp and I actually shifted gears and I got rubber out of second gear when I was going, I don't know, 50, 60 miles an hour. And I'm like, that moment, it was so brief, right? Fraction of a second.
Yep.
And I remember thinking, what had to happen for that to happen?
Yeah.
And all the stuff, years and money and time and just stuff that didn't get done.
That's what you wanted.
Yeah, opportunity cost. And that was it. And it was like all that funneled into that fraction of a second.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think like you in that room, you almost want to go back the next day and be like, hey, can you say that same thing again? Just so I can feel that again.
Yeah. But it won't be the same. It won't be the same. It's like people
it's that one
like,
time.
Like a really great vacation experience and they try to go back to that same place, but they can't get that moment back because you just can't remake it. So yeah, it's
that's cool. What did you call it? Halo moments?
Halo of success.
Halo of success. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. That is cool.
Yeah.
Well, we'll be looking forward to that new book.
Yeah.
when it comes
Coming
out
soon.
Tell me just really quickly, as far as the book goes with sales and all that jazz, that's a whole different world than the typical business school living a life world. Is this something where the book is out there and it's out there, or have you been pushing marketing and stuff like that in the book?
So,
I guess trying to get it out there.
Right. So well, it's available on Amazon.com, and I did a book launch in Lafayette, Louisiana in March. We had a great turnout, sold out of books. And the plan is to do another launch in Atlanta. I've been traveling for work almost every week, and which has been fun, but exhausting. And we're going to plan a book launch in Atlanta probably in the next month and a half.
Okay.
And then also, speaking engagements that I've been attending and keep him busy. So
nice. That is good. Never bored, right?
No, no.
That was awesome. Well, Valerie, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. This was so much fun.
Yeah, tell me, where can people find you on the internet?
So you can definitely find me on Instagram. My handle is Valerie McGehee, PhD. And I'm always posting fun things on there about my life and where I am and all my travels and my speaking engagements. I'm also on LinkedIn, same thing, Valerie McGehee, PhD. And you could buy my book on Amazon.
Awesome. Valerie, thank you so much for being on the show. I'm excited to check this thing out. And you got the Halo thing. You really have me thinking about that one.
Oh, yeah. Maybe I'll interview you.
That is awesome. This has been Authentic Business Adventures, the business program that brings you the struggle stories and triumphs and successes of business owners across the land, locally underwritten by the Bank of Sun Prairie. If you're listening or watching this on the web, if you could do us a huge favor, keep the AI algorithms happy, give it the big old thumbs up, subscribe, and of course, share it with your entrepreneurial friends, especially those that either have grit or could use a little kick so that they get a little more grit as far as goal setting and all that jazz goes. We'd like to thank you, our wonderful listeners, as well as our guest, Valerie McGehee, author of Atomic Grit, and I should say Dr. Valerie, right?
That's right.
That doesn't hurt at all to say.
I worked hard for that title.
Yeah, right. Past episodes can be found morning, noon, and night at the podcast link found at drawincustomers.com. Thank you for listening. We will see you next week. I want you to stay awesome. And if you do nothing else, enjoy your business.